You know, I think we can get started. We'll give you guys, we'll start a couple minutes early. These conferences, for those, there's a lot of people that this is their first time, they're hectic, they're tiring. So we'll get started and we'll use probably the end of this. I'm not going to be speaking for the entire hour. We'll be using the time at the end to just kind of connect, get some rest, you know, move on to the next session if you want. But yeah, let's kind of get into it. I'll talk a little bit about myself and what we do at PG&E. So the title of this is Powered Up at PG&E, a Utility Quest. And really the background around this is my team's story of how we pulled together data and information using Tableau and using a different set of, specific set of tools that we have available to us at PG&E to support electric distribution, maintenance, and construction. So this is specific to work management and what I'm doing, but a lot of the topics covered here will be fairly general. So if you're new to Tableau, if you're trying to figure out how to get it set up in your space, I think this will be relevant for you. If you're interested in kind of meeting up, you know, other people, I think I might have some people that are from PG&E that are doing meter usage. I can, you know, ask them to come up and we can do some introductions as well. But you know, I'm speaking from a lens specific to what I've been focused on over the last 5 years and my Tableau journey. So just a little bit about myself. Again, my name is Scott Lee. I'm the manager of a business systems and analytics team. I've been at PG&E for 13 years now, bounced around to a lot of different parts of the company. Like I said, we do a lot of things. So I've been in IT, I've been in energy procurement, gas, transmission, and trading, and then now electric biz ops, so, and supply chain as well. So I've done a little bit of everything at PG&E, gotten to understand a fair amount of how our data systems work and how everything kind of interconnects across those lines of business. And it's been an incredible journey to be at PG&E for these last 13 years. I started with Tableau 8.2, and I attended my first conference in 2015. So this is my third conference now. I went to Vegas, was my first year, Austin the year after that, skipped Vegas the second time last year, and I'm back here to speak today, so really excited to be here. The team that I lead, there's 7 individuals. We support electric distribution, which is about 2,000 people spread out all over our service territory. So this includes troublemen, crew in the field, you know, maybe installing like a new pole, a new wood pole, cross arms, you know, re-energizing lines, troublemen. We have service planning design that they're doing the estimates, the design work for that field construction work. We have system operators. We have executive leadership. We run the gamut. I mean, and a lot of these people aren't usually going to be in front of a computer. So we definitely have a landscape where there are challenges getting data out to the field. But we have a pretty large user base. My team has 2 functions. One is just kind of overall managing the business systems, the technology systems. So the governance around our enhancement spend on those systems, like SAP, which is our core transactional system. But the bulk of what I'll talk about today is related to data and analytics for the EDO organization. With 7 individuals, we're producing about 50 reports a week. And I'll talk a little bit about the history. But I have a small team. I don't have a lot of people. I have a lot of people that are giving me calls daily, asking for new data, new information. How do I pull these different data sets together? My team's here to provide that answer or to figure it out, essentially. And so we had to get leaner. We had to get faster because there's no way we would be able to kind of support an organization this large with only 7 people. And I was talking to someone earlier today, and you know, the steps for all of this was we were first drowning, and then we started treading water, and then now we're at a point where we're trying to start swimming and actually moving forward. And so that's really the journey that I'll be kind of sharing with you today. So just a little bit more about PG&E. We have a huge service territory, 70,000 square miles, so most in Northern California. The lower half kind of breaks up with San Diego Gas and Electric and Edison, SoCal Edison being the larger 2 in the Southern California area. We serve 1 in 20 Americans, 16 million Californians, so we have a lot of people that rely on us for electricity. We have 22,000 employees who live and work within our service territory, which kind of puts into perspective, like we have about 20,000 people here at the conference today, and that's about how many people, plus, you know, with the delta of who work at PG&E. And we've also been really pushing and supporting solar rooftop installations. And so we have 340,000 solar rooftops connected to our grid right now, well, as of March 2018. So we're doing a lot of work around that, and we've seen that spin up. And so just kind of a little bit of a forward. I'm gonna categorize this. I'm a child of the 80s, so I'm gonna categorize this in the lens of like a video game that I played growing up. So we're on a quest in this scenario. This is a free roaming world. So when I started this job 5 years ago, I had nothing. I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to get from A to B, but I knew what the problem that we were facing, and that was just a lot of work, not enough people, and we needed to get out of that drowning kind of mentality. I needed to acquire keys and tools to solve problems, so picking up the sword, picking up the shield, picking up the boomerang, whatever that might be. That's what we were kind of doing along the way. We needed to make allies so that we could exchange best practices, coming here to like a Tableau conference, working with IT, building relationships. We were trying to figure out how to get better ultimately, and like I said, this is an open world, so really there was a million different ways that we could have gone about this. And really just, it was about kind of beating the next dungeon, kind of overcoming each challenge and moving on to the next, right? And with all of this, we're only 50% of the way there. There's a lot to do still, and kind of sharing a story that's still in progress in a lot of ways. And so this is our quest, and these are the challenges that we faced. So I came into an organization where distribution reporting for 2,000 individuals was spread out across the service territory. So we had little pockets of analysts doing data work. And what would happen is when you'd roll that up to our SVP, or even just a director over a small region, numbers wouldn't match. And so I'm sure there are many of you that have that same problem, where you have decentralized reporting creating chaos for leadership reporting as it goes up. So that's kind of the biggest problem that we had. As a result, we needed to create a single source of truth. We didn't have that. We had different people downloading this data from SAP at different times, resulting in inconsistencies. We needed to increase our work capacity. We had reports that we were doing that were kind of core baseload reporting that might take half a day to produce, but then we needed to do more. It wasn't enough. We were kind of behind on our analytics consistently. We needed to enable better agility and bring together different data sets. SAP is our main data source, but we have information in finance, we have information in our outage reporting systems, we have information in our scheduling systems of what work is getting scheduled in the field. We have customer data, we have meter data, we have a lot of information that we wanted to bring together. We needed to build new metrics and tools, but we couldn't do that if we were drowning in the steady state of our work on the day-to-day. And really, we wanted to be able to be more interactive. We wanted to be more forward-thinking with our dashboards and tools, and being able to be at the forward-facing edge of working with leadership, helping them find problems, being more predictive in what we did. And so this is where we are today, and I'll walk through some of these dashboards later. So right now, like I said, we're about 50% of the way there. We have a lot we want to do. Listening to the keynote today, I already have 10, 20 ideas of things that I want to push forward on. So we are still on this journey to getting where we want to be in a comfortable spot with analytics. And so this is our background character. This is player one. This is kind of what we started with. Link, 40 hours of work a week. That's all we could do. We could only crank out what we were able to use with our tools. We couldn't turn around quick proactive analysis. We were just always reactive in everything that we touched. We were slow. I mean, like I said, there was a report that I ran when I first started. It took me 4 hours a week if it went well. And so if it didn't go well, it was 8 hours. So that was one day. Literally one day of my week was just running one report. It was incredible. We had really poor initiative support, so we couldn't turn around analysis enough for a new initiative. We were just working with such slow tools that it wasn't sustainable. And in addition, same thing, we couldn't do any emergency analysis. So if we had something like that came up from leadership that they needed to be able to speak to quickly, we couldn't talk about that. We can give them the information in a quick manner. And so our tools right now at this point were Excel Access and SAP BW, which is our reporting backend for SAP transactional. And with that, it drove us crazy because you can only download a certain amount of cells and with the upgrade to AO. And so, the way that we're extracting information is we're downloading data, crunching it back into Excel or Access, and then spitting it back out. Just a little kind of a side note, when I came to Tableau 3 years ago to the conference, I had asked them, we went to a session with SAP and Tableau, and they didn't have a good solution for that at the time. And so we were kind of in the landscape 5 years ago. We had to figure out a way, or 3 years ago at that time, we had to figure out a way, knowing that SAP was limited in being able to give us the information we needed for distribution, we had to find a way around all of that. And so we started with Access and database, Access and Excel. And the first thing we did is we got a SQL Server. Like I said, I'm using tools that are available in-house that are supported by PG&E. And so as a starting point, what we knew we needed to do is we needed a single source to just kind of house all this information. And having 10 different Excel files was not going to work. And then aggregating the backup into an Access database was not going to work. And so the first thing we did, we pulled together a simple relational database system just to kind of house that information so that if anyone could tap into it. And so that, instantly, for people that have worked with databases, it really does increase your speed and agility. You can do stored procedures, you can schedule your jobs, you can create views, and you have a consistent lens by which you're looking at information. So this really helped us out to start with. The next thing, really was getting Tableau, and Tableau, kind of as we move quickly through this, really helped us automate the analysis that we needed to do. And a lot of you, I think, are familiar with it. If you're not, if this is your first conference and you're new to Tableau, we'll definitely dive into a lot of what that automation looks like and how we were able to leverage it. But really, these two tools together, what we found, especially as we kind of started and have moved to our current maturity state, is that they work really well together. And there are a lot of other tool sets you can get with Alteryx and doing different ETL modeling. And a lot of this depends on what your team skill is and what you have access to. But I was fortunate enough to hire a great team that had experience in SQL, was willing to learn Tableau. And what we've been able to do between these two have been able to essentially schedule out and execute for the advanced users of Tableau. We were actually able to execute tab commands through SQL Server so that we're actually refreshing everything automated. So data loads come in through SAP BW. They go into SQL Server. SQL Server runs a trigger job, automates the refresh of our reports and our data. Right after that happens, it calls tab command and refreshes the Tableau Server extracts as well. So this, on a surface level, may not be that impressive or may not be that exciting, but we found ways to really kind of maximize what we get from two really simple, or SQL Server being one of the foundational tools, a tool that's been around for a long time. We're really able to work that with Tableau to a lot of benefit. But once we got all of that, it was a huge prove-it scenario, right? I was working with our leadership to get all these tools, to get everything in place, and it was like, well, what are you going to do with this now? What are you going to show me? And so, as we're going along this, just I wanted to point out something that I think is critical in all of this, and it's really getting help along the way. Tableau can kind of feel like a little bit of a skunkworks type of tool where you can just pick it up and you can do a lot of things outside of IT, but I really do want to encourage everyone here, if you're getting started with Tableau, find partners along the way, utilities like everyone here, but also within your line of business, within leadership, within your client base. And we needed that. There was no way we were going to be able to grow and sustain without getting people on board with what we're doing. So kind of a huge part of that is relationships. Building relationships here, building relationships with IT have been critical for us to be successful, because I'll tell you that framework that we have doesn't happen if IT doesn't say, yes, we'll support Tableau Server. Right? I'm not going to be able to staff a Tableau server support staff. And yes to doing data loads, transactional data loads between BW and SQL Server. There are just things that aren't going to happen without building some of those relationships. And so this is kind of the step that we took to really kind of level ourselves up. We first started transitioning some of those reports from Excel into Tableau, and so that report that used to take 4 hours a week for me was now 5 minutes if I even had to look at it or review it. We did a lot of this rationalization of reports the first year as we were transitioning from Excel to SQL Server and Tableau, and we think within 6 months we had saved, I want to say, I think it was 200 hours a week across all the analysts of just doing a couple of simple tool tweaks of adding SQL Server to start with. This is even pre-Tableau. Just having the power of SQL Server really helped us, and Tableau really kind of got us to the finish line. The other things that we had to do a lot of was just building, and I'm going to talk a lot about this as we go on, but building and building and building is really important to the success of Tableau. You're going to find that you build something, and I won't show you one of my early dashboards because it's pretty embarrassing. But you start with your first dashboard, you keep moving on, you grow your expertise, and the next thing you know, you really have something that's well polished and something that you can show here that you're really proud of, that you could maybe even jump into the Iron Biz competition later with. But this is a huge thing. Keep building. And then the last thing for us, which was I'll talk more about later, is the change management. I come from an organization, probably like many of yours, where people love Excel, people love data, people love seeing that gigantic crosstab file with, 30 columns and hundreds of thousands of rows. So there's a bunch of change management that goes with all of this, but with change management, it's the same icon I use, but it's relationships, right? You need people bought into what you're doing in order to get the change that you want, in order to really show people the benefits of transitioning to Tableau, of really building out like these analytical tools. So this is what we currently have as our infrastructure. Just as a quick high level, so we have SAP as our transactional database. It's our core database or core transactional system for work management. All that gets fed into BW is the reporting layer, and that pushes into SQL Server on a nightly basis with Delta. So we get daily data load. So all the data that we were pulling manually via BW and AO is now getting pushed into our SQL Server. We've also leveraged our SQL Server, similar to like how Alteryx and other platforms and like Tableau Prep kind of have been set up. But we use that as to create like a type of a data lake where we're using SQL Server to link to other applications within PG&E. So we have a scheduling tool that's on an Oracle database. We have an outage tool that's on another SQL Server. We have project management that's on a different application system. And we've essentially taken SQL Server, really kind of opened it up and turned it into a data lake so that we can push information down to our reporting and analytics layers, which is still has access in Excel for people that need to kind of work through it. But really, Tableau Server is our primary key to getting information out to the field. So this is the current setup. We're constantly evolving, but we really needed to solve that kind of first layer of getting information, and then the Tableau piece really helped round out the final, the final layer of what is this information telling me. And so this is what our character looks like today. Not quite where we want to be yet, but we're still, we definitely have a lot more capability. We have increased capacity now, so my team's no longer running just reports just to spit them out for executive to see or for the field to see. They're actually able to produce and generate new analytics on a weekly basis. We can do sprints now. We can actually kind of work ourselves into new capabilities with Tableau as opposed to just doing what we've been asked to do and not really being able to think beyond the box that we were given. So we do a lot of dashboarding and new tools. We can do ad hoc analysis. I mentioned this, we have full automation on our reporting, so there's a lot of steady state work that just happens in the background that gets spit out. We don't have to touch, thanks to SQL Server and thanks to Tab Command. We have a lot more insight on some new initiatives because we have the data in one place. We can query it, we can put it into Tableau, we can kind of chart it out, we can do a lot of different analysis. And so now our tool set is desktop and server. We have the SQL Server, our BW extractor, which I mentioned, and like I said, we still have MS Access and Excel as well. And so I'm going to jump into a couple of Tableau tips before I jump to the dashboards themselves. But like I said, build, build, build. So just one of the things I like to do outside of work is I like to build things with my hands, and so I do woodworking. And I was using this analogy as I was explaining this to someone else. But when I first started woodworking, I had some crude tools, and I was kind of cutting poorly and kind of figuring my way out. But as I kept building, I learned like new techniques, new skills, and this is the same thing with Tableau, is that as you build more, you'll learn, you know, the value of a parameter, the value of the LOD, the value of like the different charts that are available. But as you get more skilled with it, you can start to do things like, in our case, we can pass a parameter from Tableau into SQL Server and run a new select query off of that, right? So we can start to do more interaction. We can start to do more complex activities with the tools. But really just encouraging everyone to keep building, you know, keep figuring out like what works, what doesn't. Iterate through, know that what you did a year ago is not going to look like how you would tackle it a year later. That's pretty critical. Keep learning, and this is why we're here at the conference, right? We want to learn, we want to share ideas on how do we show work management information at PG&E versus a different utility. Like there's so many different ways that we can look at the same data, and it's helpful to have these different lenses to share. Compromise. I think this is the big one that I kind of had to learn through change management, coming here and talking with others. You know, we have people that, like I said, love their Excel files, and I can't get them out of it. And so I'll show you some examples where we had to compromise on our dashboards, where I might have wanted to build the most beautiful dashboard ever, but because I need, at the end of the day, someone to use that dashboard, I have to compromise with the design of what that looks like. Make it easy. This is another huge one. Like I said, we deal with people that are in the field, you know, pretty much every day, and they sit in front of a computer maybe a couple hours a day to do their time card, maybe look at some information. And so, like I said, adoption is critical, and so part of the compromise is making it easy, having fewer actions, having fewer, having, you know, more straightforward information without having to refilter multiple times. We're all really good data people in this room, but the people that tend to use our data are not, and so I think having that, that perspective will help you gain better traction with your tools. Be consistent. Be consistent with the way it looks, be consistent with the way it feels, so that it makes it easier for people that are using your dashboards. Be creative, have fun with it. It's kind of, you know, you can, as you're building along, as people get more comfortable with seeing Tableau and seeing dashboards, you can have a little bit more fun with the graphics that you can do, the viz tips that you can have, the actions that you can have, and you can kind of slowly inch them in until you really do have an enterprise organization that is, like, this is the standard. We're not there yet. We're not quite at the place where Tableau is the standard and everyone understands a dashboard action, and if they click on something, they'll see information right away. But we're slowly getting there, and we're trying to be creative in the process. And share what you're doing. If you can, share across your company, share at, you know, meetups. We should definitely do more of these with Tableau, but definitely share your ideas of how you're pulling together similar information. So with that, I'm going to kind of switch over to this. Okay. All right. So this is a reporting menu that we had to build out for our leadership, for our team. And this is kind of one of the things that was not asked for. It was like a side project that we needed to pull together. Like I said, my team pulls together 50 reports a week. And it's not easy to send your users a link to everything, or to even send them to the Tableau dashboard like workbook page, right? And so I was actually searching around Google for this. I couldn't find a good example one, so I had to build one, essentially. So we have a menu here that allows any user with an electric distribution to filter through a report that they may want to find. And this includes both Tableau and Excel. So up here we have different kind of quick filters for the organizations that we support. Down here there's a cadence for when that report comes out, the day of the week, if relevant. There's keyword filters as well that people can search through. There's kind of a quick button if I want to see only the Tableau dashboards. We have all the reports that are down here. And for example, if I want to click on the information icon, I can kind of go through the description, if there are any actions to take with the dashboard. Now, just a little bit of background, all this information I had to create myself, right? This information doesn't exist in some wonderful reporting menu out in PG&E. We're building this information kind of on the fly as we build new new data sets. But this is one of the things that I love about Tableau is that I couldn't figure out how to do this in kind of through any other means, and Tableau made it super easy to do once we got the information into it. So having the dashboard actions, having the ability, what I like is to be able to search by keyword, so I can type in all the information relevant to set up the report, and then and for the user, they can just start to search by keyword or category or report name and kind of find what they need. So this is one of the kind of the starting points that I wanted to share with everyone here. The other thing too that we have that's been helpful for us, like I said, we have a data load that happens every day, every morning actually. And so for our users, this is kind of their one-stop shop. If they need to find anything, they can find the reports here, and they can also check to see that data is ready for them as well on these reports. So I'm going to bounce around to another report. So this is this dashboard was supporting our the NorCal rebuild efforts after the fires that we had last year. It was a huge, just a huge calamity last year, and our focus has been getting customers back online. And this dashboard specifically is a good interplay between our customer-facing organization and our construction organization, because they both need to know, be able to communicate out what's happening. And so, kind of at a high level, we're able to just kind of call out, how many customer applications are being submitted and how are they working through the process of work management. So, from submission to construction complete, we're tracking the volume. In this case, this is inception to date of just, how many customers are submitting claims that they were impacted by the fire and that we really need to turn around how quickly we do their work. And so in the middle section here, we have some cycle times of how quickly we're completing that work. And then down here, we have a little bit of a little bit of mapping data that we pull in to kind of understand like the overall load or the overall volume of work that's happening either by city. I could also change it by county. Oops, it's been stale for a few minutes. We can change it by county as well to kind of see the volume rather than just the cities. On the right-hand side is the totals of that information. Hold on. There we go. So here you go. So we have Lake, Mendocino, Sonoma, and then let's say I just want to look at Napa, for example. So then I can kind of focus in on applications submitted for Napa, the customer cycle time. And this is important for our customer team to have this information. They want to know like where are we experiencing the most call volume? Where do we really need to focus our efforts? If we have a lot of applications in a specific area, make sure that we have the resources that we're able to communicate out to the customer, but also to leadership, like where everything is happening. So this tool is made and designed for both leadership on the customer and the electric distribution front, but also for the managers and the supervisors that are managing the different steps of the work, whether it's design or construction completion. And then kind of similar to that, let's do this. So we have the same information, and this is used to support the huddles that occur on a weekly basis, several times a week. And so with the slider, with the data just slider, we can help our managers and our supervisors focus in on what came in the last 3 days, 7 days, year to date. So it gives them that type of granularity that we wouldn't have had if we couldn't get the information into the system and then have that reporting layer that we're using with Tableau today. Oops. And then down here, like I said, we can't get rid of our crosstabs. So, and this isn't a bad thing. I think that sometimes Tableau, we try to discourage, there's general discouragement over using crosstabs, but sometimes people just really need that raw information. They want to be able to have that actual application number to research. And so we don't want to take any of that away, but what we want to do is we want to kind of filter that data set down as much as possible so that people aren't staring at, like I said, 100,000 rows. But in this case, they're staring at 6 in total. Here we have the application information for the 6 applications that came in recently. And then down here, the open order section is just kind of walking through just the different stages of our applications that are open still. So we have some that are waiting on customer for construction. We have the order numbers and the different statuses that they move through. We have cycle times. And so this gives like a little bit more granularity so that when they are in a huddle on a weekly basis, they have enough information to kind of walk through. They can actually talk through that. And then kind of lastly, and this is what we always do for all of our dashboards, we always have the big crosstab. You'll see here the long slider bar. So we do always end up with for our design, a general, here's the high level, here are the analytics on it, but we still offer up the raw data at the end of the day. The raw data is already attached to all this data, to the visualization, so there's no reason to hide everything entirely. So we try to give people the tools to kind of start with to see the high level information, but if they need to dig into, all 60,000 applications that have come in, they can do that. We don't really want them to, but they can still do that. And so this helps us mitigate the need to produce the Excel files that go out with every report. And we still do that today. We still produce some Excel files, but we're trying to get people out of that because that creates an additional sense of overhead on our reporting. And I wanted to kind of highlight one more thing before I jump to a different dashboard. At the beginning I said be consistent, and one of the things I picked up at a previous Tableau conference was like templates, creating a consistent look and feel for all the reports that we put out. So I got this tip from, I think it was Chevron. I think they came up. And they had a branding on top of all their dashboards that I liked. I liked how they kind of set that up. And so all of our dashboards are set up in a similar fashion, taking that idea from Chevron, where we have our logo, we have the dashboard title, we have the date refreshed and the time, and then we have our team logo. But what's really neat, and someone on my team built this, is that we have a menu bar on the side, so the menu, and so we can add in the report description, we can add in the contact information. We actually have, this is where we put the Excel data as well, so for all of our users that want the Excel information, they can find it, it's somewhere available, but we don't have to have them go through view data to download it. They can actually go to a source data link embedded in the Tableau dashboard. So this is how all of our dashboards work. We have this nice place where we can embed that report information. We can, if there are RAG statuses that need to be made available, we can build them into that as well. But yeah, this is, I think, a cool little trick with expanding and collapsing containers. Unfortunately, I can't speak to how that was actually designed. One of the guys on my team figured it out using the actions and the containers, but it's a neat little trick. This other one I want to show, and trying to open up for questions after this. This report is kind of it's not a lot to look at, but what I wanted to call out about this specific report is this goes out to some field crew, the distribution line techs, who are never in front of a computer. They have a mobile device, and what we've done with this report is we set up subscriptions to email them out every day their schedule. And so we've taken all the data that we're pulling together, and the filters are preset for the engineer that needs it, but it's one of the benefits of Tableau is that we can help schedule and push out this as a PDF, as a schedule for our line techs who are never in front of a computer. So we're trying to find different ways to enable Tableau given the landscape that we have. We are not quite on Tableau mobile yet. We're still kind of getting there, and I think when we have that, that'll really open up our tool set and what we can do. But in the meantime, I mean, subscriptions are a great way to go with sending information out when people can't open it up. They can't do that themselves. But the other thing that I wanted to call out as well with this data set is that the information that we had for the back end wasn't all kind of neatly tied. And so for this one, this was actually a partnership with our supply chain organization to help understand what work these DLTs were doing based on the type of material that was out in the field that was supposed to be installed for a certain type of job. And so having the partnership with supply chain, having the SQL server to really serve as a data lake layer, and then having Tableau to push out this information really helped create this into a really nice package. that people use. And that's ultimately what we want. We just want people to use our data. We want people to make better decisions. We want people to be better informed. So yeah, this is one of the victories that we've had with Tableau. We're really excited about it. We're excited about more things to come. So hopefully in a couple of years, we'll be at that 75% state and can share more here, but I actually expect, that we'll have a lot more utility speakers in the future. So, but yeah, that's all I have for today, and just really thank you for your time and bringing everyone together for utilities. If anyone has any questions, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, so we're working through, similar to Agile, but we're not fully leveraging Agile, but we try to do sprints with that so that we're delivering a tool within a couple of weeks so that people can see it. Because it's a different story when people see the information and they're not used to Tableau. And so when they see it for the first time, that gets people excited. But the other thing that we need someone within the line of business to champion it. So if we produce a tool, they're the ones that need to sell it and help us teach people how to use it ultimately. So you're not going to be able to do that on your own. You're also not going to have the bandwidth to do that on your own. So you're going to really need that champion within the line of business that will say, I will use this makes sense, this serves my purpose, and I will help you share this information. So, yeah, good question. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, and I think that's a good question. We don't have certified data sets, and I think that's an interesting place where my team sits, where we have IT, which owns the transactional system and BW and the reporting layer. We've effectively created a BI team that has the capability to structure the data set to fit the business, whereas IT has historically been too far away from the business to understand what the data means. And so within the team, we kind of do our own certification. We're small enough that we know what goes into it. We know what queries or sort of procedures build up that data set. But that is something that we're starting to head towards, because we are having overlapping data sets right now, inconsistent definitions, and so we're going to have to start certifying our data sets. But yeah, we're not quite there yet. But we also have the agility to do it, where we don't have to rely on IT to kind of stand it up for us, and then we consume it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No, that doesn't. Yeah, the Excel file that we have is actually another component of our automated system that we leverage from SQL Server, which just pushes out like a file onto a SharePoint. And so it's the same raw data backend that eventually Tableau is leveraging through the table or a view, but we just dump into Excel for the user to use. But yeah, that would be a nice to have one day. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're set up where my team is small and agile enough that we are pretty much the only developers with Tableau. The rest of the business, they're just all readers on it. So the permission set was pretty seamless, although as we transition to 2018.1 or 2, that's going to change. That's going to create a new layer. But we're pretty much a self-service BI team serving a large organization, which is, I think, unique, maybe very unique to other groups, where you may want to set that up, may not be able to, but we have kind of the full control over all of our BI tools. Yeah, in the back. Mm-hmm. It depends, because the licenses are like the pricing structure is changing, and so as an organization we have to navigate that as well. We're not opposed to it. I mean, we have groups that we partner with, like we have a mapping individual here today that works off of the information we have. He's building dashboards for his team and asset management on that. So we're definitely open to that, but there's also a limitation on just how much the company wants to spend on the licenses, which has been prohibitive at times. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's like a level of organizational politics that kind of goes beyond me. But we run into it for sure. We're in this situation right now. So I'm like I said, I'm a part of electric business operations. I serve the D side, and we have another side that serves the transmission organization. They are completely decentralized in the way that they develop their analytics. And so, whereas my team service model has been communicated to distribution that we are full service, that we are client facing, and anything you need, come to us. Transmission has been set up where they're siloed out essentially. And so we are kind of working through the change management of trying to show the benefits of letting us build out a single data set. And to someone's earlier point, like if we have a certified data set, you can tap into that and you can do your own self-service analytics, but we need that agreement across the board. And so that's why there's change management politics on top of that aren't often easy to see. But if you can make the case, and I made this earlier, if you can prove that what you're doing makes more sense with the tools that you have using Tableau, I think that kind of shows the benefit, right? Like it gets people interested, it gets people curious about that. But you have to prove it, right? You have to show if someone's going to sign up for it and invest their time and resources into having you do this, you need to prove it essentially. Yeah. No, I think it boils down to like which one is driving the business, right? Like just because you have a biz doesn't mean you're driving the business, and that's I think the one thing about where our journey is still kind of turning a little bit is that we're slowly getting a little bit more proactive in terms of what work is not getting done in time, what's at risk, and instead of just reporting out, how do we do? And part of that actually has been a shift in the business looking at data differently. And so something that I didn't speak too much about is that with Tableau, it's like you can start to turn the way you look at data, whereas you're always reactive, you can start to be proactive about it. And I think that's really going to help kind of make that case for what's the right direction. If you can help set direction, you're going to get people on board with that. So, yeah, mm-hmm. So so the questions about data governance and data cleanup, we don't actually do any data cleanup. What we do though is we show the line of business exactly what they're putting into the system. It's garbage in, garbage out. So the SQL Server itself isn't doing much data cleansing on that level, but what we found value in is if I were to show this set of data to a DLT out in the field, for example, and they were to say, hey, you know what, that information's not right, that schedule date is wrong, then we start to have the conversations through those that are entering data with, hey, make sure, how do we ensure that the process is being adhered to so that we can report the correct analytics? So it's kind of they all kind of chain together, and it's not the best answer, but it goes back to the change management, it goes back to the relationships. You can't ask people, you can't do anything with bad data. Like you can try to, you might be able to, for example, take a lat long that had a sign flipped and fix it for your area, but you can't, if someone doesn't enter in any information, then you can't fix that unless you show them, hey, by the way, did you know 60% of our assets have no lat long, so we have no idea where these assets are. Yeah, so, in the back, yeah. Oh, everything we have will give people visibility to the bad data, because once you start digging into proactive performance tracking, like are we going to miss targets for a construction job, people will say, oh, I forgot to change that date. And so then people start, the more people see the information on a daily basis, the more they realize, oh, I really need to kind of work with the information. There is quite a bit of, there's a lot of scrutiny and a lot of kind of, a lot of people, their first question is the data right? Well, we tell them, our job, and my team's job is not to make the data correct. I can't correct the data for you, but I can show you what you're putting into the system so that we can have an accurate forecast of what work is going to happen, essentially. So, yeah. So we do all of the enterprise. So sorry, for enterprise, we don't touch, we report all the way up to our executive leadership with their dashboards, but we don't touch anything outside of our line of business, which is why there are other individuals here at PG&E that are kind of building out their own analytics like organizations. And it's a turn for us at PG&E. Like just 3 years ago, we didn't even have an analytics COE. So, and we stood up a whole organization for that that's doing similar work at an enterprise level. Unfortunately, they're not moving fast enough for us within the company for us to do this type of work. And that's what we found within PG&E is that we just kind of have to, we have a business need that's here today, and in the future, as that analytics COE matures, we'll partner right back with them. And maybe 3 years from now, we won't be on SQL Server. We're going to be on like AWS, everything on the cloud, and we won't be touching the data, but we'll be focused on something else. So it's constantly an evolving kind of situation. So, yeah.
How is Tableau used at your company? Spread throughout the company? Do you have like a user group that coordinates between the different users?
That is still very much in flight, and so I think there was a woman at Pfizer that when she was speaking earlier today, she said like it was a skunkworks kind of effort. That's how Tableau started at PG&E. We were skunkworks, so there was a customer group that said we want a Tableau server and we're going to bring it in. And then I knew some of the people there said, hey, I wanted to bring that in as well. And so we kind of started up in small pockets. We're slowly trying to bring that together as a COE, but we're not quite there yet. So a lot of what we're doing, even for people that within PG&E today, this is their first time seeing what I've produced, and vice versa. So we're still very much kind of independent in how we're operating. And that's, I think, largely also because IT has not met us fully with Tableau and how we want to engage with it. We're still figuring out like the data layer. We have across our enterprise, I mean, hundreds of applications and application databases, and we don't have a data lake that kind of pulls all that together, which is why I needed to pull that together for my business, right? So we're still evolving that COE as we speak, and I think there's a good conversation that Tableau is leading on analytics COE here today, so in the back. That one is a relational conversation always, and it goes above me. So I have to engage with all the senior directors, and they are the ones that have to help me prioritize which one is more important today. So right now for us, the field is the most important. You know, the executives care less about seeing their performance dashboards or anything. They want the field to have all of the daily relevant information as to what's scheduled, because they know that that's a gap. So that's what the direction we get. But a week from now, we need to meet with that leadership again to reprioritize what sprints we have to go through in the next like 3, 4, 5 weeks, essentially. But yeah, there's no easy way to prioritize who gets what in all of this. And I think that's where my team's kind of evolved into more agile, or had to become more agile in that way. Whereas before, I think for a lot of groups, like you're just a reporting service. Like people give you a request and you just do it. It's kind of like give and take. We've had to change the way we think about data and analytics into like software development, because that's what it's becoming. That's what it's starting to feel like. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they're with us the entire way. So I mean, the ideation comes from them, and from that point on, they have to be present. They have to be the ones that tell us exactly what they need, because they're the ones using it. And that's, I think, the tricky part about where BI and and people that use the data sit. I don't often use the data, which is the irony of building these dashboards, and I'm sure a lot of people feel the same ways. You're not the end user of this. You may not even understand this as well. You understand how it works holistically, but the people that ask for this are going to be the ones that use it, and they need to be bought in with every single aspect. And I can show you one where, like I said, we don't, it's not our design. There we go. So this one that's coming up, this is for the field. This is nothing special. You could build this in Excel, right? But at the end of the day, we're not refreshing this in Excel. I'm not going to do that, right? We don't have the bandwidth. We don't have the time to do that. But this is what the field wants, because They're not going to look at, as much as we know about visual cues, what's helpful, what's not, you can color things, they won't use it at the end of the day. And so that's what we kind of work towards. And that's where we're constantly kind of pairing, right? We want to be creative, and we know that there are things that will be helpful at the end of the day with different visualization techniques, but we also need them to use it. And so they came up with this. We can't complain. I mean, and if you go down, it gets even better because we have all the information at the bottom. But it's, like I said, it's about compromise. I mean, we're not supporting an organization that's highly technical, that really understands like charts and graphs quickly. Like they need to be kind of walk through all of this. But at the end of the day, as long as they can go through the data and, for example, like they can see how many jobs are left. They can kind of filter through the information. They can see the performance, like what's scheduled to be executed this month, next month, and next 3 months. That's all that matters. Like, and that's a huge part of the compromise. I mean, I could have showed you this dashboard. It wouldn't have been that impressive, but it's a good example of working with a customer at the end of the day. So, any other questions today? Yep.
So could you go back to maybe development? What it like, and I want to remember.
This one or? Mm-hmm. Oops. Mm-hmm. I think this one, I'm not sure what format this one is, but most of our other dashboards that I'd shown are formatted for A3, and so when you print out, it'll fit the PDF pretty nicely. And that's another challenge, right? Like that we haven't touched, and we're trying to steer people away from at PG&E, which is easier. Which is actually easier than we realized, because at PG&E we're really trying to cut down on the amount of paper we have at meetings. I know guys that used to print out like a thick binder every month for monthly report outs, but leadership said we should stop doing that. But the only way to stop doing that is they're heading here now, and that's really helping the conversation. So, but yeah, there are ways to, I think, automate like printing out of PDFs and PowerPoints. Not PowerPoints. PowerPoints are a little trickier, but PDFs are easier. And you could do that and embed that within the dashboard if you needed to as well. Yeah. Yeah, I think this one actually got formatted for 8 by 14, because I think they were printing out these 8 by 14 and putting them in the ballrooms of the yards. And so that's, like I said, it's like our audience is so different than if we were to go jump into like a different company where everyone's co-located in an office. You can work differently, but because we have people that are out in yards, they're printing things, they're putting them on cork boards, they're taking them in their car, in their truck, and then driving out. We kind of work with what the format that they need. So, yep. Yep. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the customer-facing, so we can tap into the customer-facing information. I'm not showing any of it for obvious reasons. But it's customer-related in the sense of, hey, we have an application, that customer's application, how is it moving along through the pipeline? So that's where it's relevant for customers. So they can know my application is still stuck in, design, isn't still in the design phase, or it's still waiting to be scheduled in the design. And our customer-facing team can go look that up and tell the customer right away exactly where it is. And that's the gap that we have within PG&E, having so many different data sources. Salesforce is our customer application, a CRM tool. SAP's work management, and they don't talk to each other. And so this is where customer teams can go for that information. No, we don't have that. Not off of Tableau. And maybe that's something to have in the future. Any other questions? Cool. Well, thanks for your time. Before you go, actually, I have to do a quick plug. Session survey. If you have a chance, please fill out the session survey. Really appreciate it. I think it'd probably be good feedback for Tableau, like I said, to bring up more utility presentations. I certainly want to learn more about what you all are doing in your spaces. So I'd be excited to be able to come back and see like 10 more of these things from my schedule. So thank you.